My buddy Dwayne has a second generation Toyota Tacoma that, man, he spends money on like it is a teak sailboat. So he's already replaced the front and rear bumper, and the front is a 2-inch tube, and it's got rock sliders that are the 2-inch tube. But the back bumper, it just didn't match. He didn't think so. He went shopping. What he decided on was a 2-inch tube bumper from a guy in Southern California that owns Outgear Solutions. The only issue with it is it wasn't a direct bolt on. It required some body modification, and he had it in his garage for a little while. I think that actually getting up the nerve to cut his body took him just a little bit. But he gave me a call and asked me what I was doing one weekend, and I and Blue Coyote Racing cut it up for him. And this is the how-to video and the explanation of kind of what we found and a review of the bumper itself. We've all seen everything come out of a box before, but here it is sitting on the box because we didn't remember to film it taking out of the box. And Dwayne has all of the other stuff, including the caps, the trim, the hardware. Hey, pull my finger. Oh, yeah. Okay.
I hate you.
Because stickers make it go fast.
Got a sticker. Some stickers. Everyone gets a sticker.
I love stickers. Now, there are some Gen 3 instructions and videos online, but from Outgear Solutions, there was nothing on how to put this on a Gen 2 Toyota. So we decided to look at the Gen 3 instructions, put our Thunken caps on, measure around on this truck, and come up with our own instructions. All right, in the Gen 3, it talks about measurements from where the bed cap hits down to where you need to cut. So those aren't the right measurements for the Gen 2. What you need to do is mark right where the cap hits the body, like right here, and then measure up from that mark to where the bed cap comes over the side of the bed. Write that down. You're going to use it again, because then what you need to do is put tape all the way across that part of the panel, and you're going to make 3 or 4 marks at that same distance all the way across. So some painter's tape and a Sharpie are going to be your friends here. We put that end cap on and then mark the bottom hole with a Sharpie. Now you can't mark the top hole with a Sharpie. So then what we had to do is we measured from the outside in on that top hole, and it's a 1/2 inch. And then we measured the space center to center between the holes, and it's 2.5 inches. So we marked a line 1/2 inch in, and then a line 2.5 inches up, and drilled the hole. And shockingly, they line up. Now, we did put it on a couple of times just to make sure before we put the first hole in his truck. But that is how we got the end cap to go on correctly. And now you repeat that for both sides. So you're going to install and uninstall that rear cap and your rear tail light a couple of 5 times or 6 times during this whole thing. Just get used to it now and prepare yourself. Normally, I recommend a different paint application, but this was pre-mixed, and we just wanted to make sure that there would be no rust on any open metal. I mean, I know that you 10 bar, but it's almost like you've done some nail work before.
I have. Haven't you seen the picture of me in drag? We'll link it.
That's
We'll link it on the YouTube.
it's almost professional, like you've done some French tips and shit. There are any number of 7mm bolts and nuts in this kit, and you're going to want, in addition to a ratchet and an extension and a 7mm socket, you're going to want a regular box end wrench and a ratcheting box end wrench in 7mm in order to get to and around all these tight spots.
So, 2-man job to get this done.
There we go. And after you get those marks in place, I would then take some more tape. We ended up using some duck seal tape and making a straight line. Now, it's going to be hard if you like pull the tape, it goes wonky back and forth. We ended up using a straight edge. So like a Starrett scale that was like 4 feet long. But you could use a drywall square, or even a long framing square, or a long piece of straight kind of flexible metal, and mark that line all the way across. Draw a line and then tape above and below, probably 3 inches either side, because what you don't want to do is when you're cutting the body, have any bits and bobs of your cutting wheel or steel or whatever going up and scratching the rest of your paint.
Look at that. Got bed caps. All right, let's put the bumper back on.
And I'm just trying to be helpful here. Again, mark it out and then mark which side of the line you're going to cut, just for giggles. And remember to take off that cap. Don't cut it with the cap on. Everybody's having a good time till you pull out the chainsaw and make someone have a heart attack because they think that you're going to trim the old truck with the McCullough. Yeah, right there on that plastic.
Hold it. Hold it like this.
This should go unsaid, but do not cut your truck with the chainsaw. Use a proper cutoff wheel and eye protection, not the safety squint. Real eye protection. Ken of Blue Coyote Racing fame did the initial cuts and actually did most of the cutting itself. And man, poor Dwayne, he just was beside himself with worry. So this part is actually similar to the Gen 3 as far as how much of that back piece you have to cut off. And the easiest way to do it is kind of measure it on the bumper and then measure down from where the mounts are. Yeah, this wasn't that big of a deal, except for like with just a cutoff wheel, it was difficult. I really suggest you use a Dremel with a small, like 1.5-inch cutoff wheel as well. And again, we learned this after the fact, but it's easier to take the cap off than to leave it on while you're doing this, so you don't ding it, that sort of thing. You're actually going to want to use a tarp and maybe some magnets to hold it in place above where you cut, again, just to keep from marring paint. I mean, you can see here where like having just a regular cutoff wheel would be painful to get into these tight spots. So again, the Dremel with get like 3 or 4 wheels just in case, but a Dremel was really the way to go here. And poor Dwayne's level of anxiety was about 10 at this point.
What the hell is that leaking? Funny jokes. It's
It's got a bolt at the bottom.
All right, get the bolts off here.
It's popped right off. Look at
Popped right off. Okay, get the one off the bottom. I'm gonna grab that one, Dwayne. 10mm. Sure. There we go. We'll pull that back up. There we go. Perfect.
I'd do it from that side, from the bottom.
Go. Cut the bumper in half. Sure it fits. Out like this on this side. I just hope it looks good, man.
Hey, Dwayne, do you want to make the cuts?
I did bring my glasses.
Oh.
Here.
This should go without saying, but get a flap wheel and sand both edges. Don't use a file. Get a nice flap wheel. You can get a triangular file to get into the nooks and crannies, but but sand both edges on both sides so that you don't have just gnarly bits sticking out. A little Keystone Cops action getting the bumper on the first time, so having those jack stands there really helped out. And now you're going to put it on, just make sure everything works, and it looks great, and then pull it back off.
I'll bring you to your page.
Oh, is that how you do it? I'm lucky we got
In the back of the truck here.
The Dremel tool will come in handy again.
Eyes.
All right, so it looks like he got sent us these fender supports for the Gen 3. So this wasn't the only time that happened, actually. If you go on Tacoma World, there's a couple of other people that had Gen 2 pickups that they got the Gen 3 support brackets as well. So, yeah, for what it's worth. So we're going to cut this off and then bend it here and drop another hole in there in order for it to work on the Gen 2 Toyota. So 2015 to 2012. So from where I cut it right at that bend, it's 1.25 inches back to do the new bend to get it to fit right. Using the vise and the dead blow, we set the proper angle in it. And then with a little black Krylon, we made it rust-proof-ish.
Okay.
That fit like a glove.
Punch a hole through the flare. Bolt.
Careful here not to get too squirrely with the drill bit and punch a hole all the way through the flare. Actually, a step bit would probably be the best thing here. So after helping the paint dry a little bit with a heat gun, we installed the included trim. So a little more Keystone Cops action, but you really need to, after you set it in, you're going to need a couple, 3 people in order to get the exact spacing. Use a dead blow hammer so you don't mar the surface, and then just get 1 or 2 of those, the bolts holding it on, get those started. Speaking of the bumper bolts, the directions didn't come with the torque specs, so you had to look those up. Now, please refer to your own manual, but the specification that we found for the Gen 2 Toyota rear bumper was 90 foot-pounds. While there's no specific bolt pattern identified, it's best to kind of sneak up on the torque and just go from 1 bolt to 1 bolt and side to side until everything's good and tight. Now reinstall the tailgate. Make sure you have plenty of clearance. It's at this point you can stand back and marvel at the fact that everything's straight and square and your friend Dwayne hasn't had a heart attack. I mean, I will say, giving us some credit, this it's a nice clean installation. It looks really good and really changes the angle that the truck is capable of. Understand that if you do install this bumper, you are going to have your tailpipe either modified or raised because it's going to hang down a lot lower than your bumper. So some instructions, pictures, video, a napkin sketch, something like that would have been nice. But overall, it all went together fairly well. We did build on other people's experience with the later model. But the biggest issue we had was actually probably the very smallest part. And I'll let Dwayne go over what he found. The lights that came with it, you ended up getting a lighted plate?
Yeah, well, so the smaller ones were, you couldn't secure it. You couldn't get it really tight on there. So I looked on Amazon, link will be in the bio, and I found this one. And I just spliced it right in to the old light.
All right, solution then.